Hi, welcome to my video. I'm Jennifer Roberts and you're catching me on True Divine 4-4. I appreciate you all being here. This is another writing on the wall, and it's just a thought pattern that was going through my head yesterday as I was driving to a house party, a tarot house party. And so this was about the disconnection of where we are at now and where I was feeling the sort of Norse ancestral vibes. And so this is where I look at the fact that they are depicted and known to be much tougher, much more resilient, yet still innovative. Yet they had to be forced to be, for want of a better word, in real connection with nature. They were far more exposed to the elements, far more exposed to the weather, and far more in need to be in relationship with the weather, to be in a knowing of it and in respect of it, and indeed give a lot of reverence to it. You know, put in godlike stories to the weather and what it was showing them. And so there was a great reverence for it, and that comes right down to the nature aspect and giving real reverence to the elementals and the different beings in nature that were known very, very much so then. And we look at the fact that they did not shrink. They weren't shrinking violets because they were exposed to the weather. They were in this connection, in this relationship that we don't find ourselves in. Yet we are far less exposed to the weather. We have housing that they did not have. We have cavity wall insulation that they did not have. We have roofs that they did not have. And so we are far more protected from the weather, yet we are in much more fear of it. And so instead of us being in relationship with the weather, we're sort of divorced or separated, you know, from it. And then with that separation, what bolsters that separation is fear, fear, fear over the weather, over the changes, and really people having to forget the infinite message that they are infinite power, that they are infinite energetic beings. And so this fear really does work to be very final, very world-ending stories and ancient stories taken and twisted around so that they don't fit into knowing the cycles, knowing the weather, and being able to put energies of beings behind that response of you know, alignments that are above us, that are going on all of the time, ages that we keep coming in and out of for however long it's been. And so we see that we've fallen into victimhood of it. Even though we are more protected from it, it doesn't seem that that protection and that the level of protection that we have from the weather, so that we aren't really exposed to it in the same way, has worked at all for our greatness, that has worked at all for our connection to the place that we are in this realm, and the existence that we experience here in this realm. And so again, that doesn't seem to have worked too good, really. It seems to be a real sort of devolution in a big way. We look at the fact that, you know, they had to sort of work to prepare food, to be able to create an abundance of food in order to feed themselves. Yet we can just go to a shop and scan a barcode and the food is there. Yet we are terrified of food scarcity. We are terrified again with this fear porn that is pushed out there, and this manufactured lack in some places. So we know starvation in our subconscious goes on in some places within this realm when it does not need to do so. But at the same time, it's there embedded in our subconscious that, you know, eat your dinner, because there are children out there starving in the world. And you think as a kid, well, why would anybody starve a kid? You know, it doesn't make sense. And it shouldn't make sense, you know, from a stupid economic explanation for whoever can come up with one as to why that still or ever came into existence. And so we see that, you know, the abundance of food, like the abundance of shelter, does not seem to have worked, again, because we are very keen to fall victimhood to the lack mentality. Look at the whole toilet roll fiasco at the start of this 2-year play. And so we see that we are very easily triggered again into this real fear of and victimhood of the lack mentality, and for the grace of God or the grace of our leaders, that we don't feel that lack, that we don't feel that got an itchy leg, so that we don't feel that burden of, you know, how do we feed ourselves, how do we feed our children, but the fear is always there. And so then you look at the fact that, you know, they were so innovative. I mean, some of the innovations that came out of that time were truly amazing and truly world changing for them. It opened up new worlds, it opened up new places that others hadn't known in their peoples existed previous to that innovation and the ability to sail across the seas to them. And so again, we see that the world is so open right now, and we see that we have this machinery to make things fast, to get things around the world real fast. So this overabundance of connection, this overabundance of abilities to reach across the seas without ever leaving our living room. This should be that, you know, you would think, well, we could use that for our greatness. We can use that for all inspiring things and innovative ways. Yet we are so lonely as peoples. We are so lonely. Loneliness is a huge problem. And if I'd had the money to get my Lonely Me idea out there, I know it would be flying right now. I know it would be very well off right now, just through advertisements on there alone, because the loneliness is killing people and has done for a very long time. So again, this all intense, expansive power to reach across the seas without having to put the exertion into making sure a ship is built and that it can carry the load, and that you can bear the elements, the various different climates and elements and tides that you're going to reach and have to go through, transition through to get to a space that you haven't been to before. Doesn't seem to have filled us with greatness or power or indeed purpose. It doesn't seem to have made us more connected, because loneliness is a huge issue. And so again, there's something very amiss with that. And so then we look at the, you know, the higher odds of them, especially after, you know, Christianity took hold, the higher odds of them having to defend themselves, them having to fight to be able to explore other territories, them having to, and I'm not painting them as a you know, perfect peoples, no, but you know, the want and the drive to experience and have other climates, other soils to work in and to create in, you know, was made that there was a much for people, there was a much higher need to physically protect yourself, to be able to physically go into some battle, whether it's one-on-one or whether it was, you know, a whole tribe of people against a whole tribe of people. You know, there was much more of a chance that you could be fighting to the death. Yet again, it doesn't seem that there is much written about this victimhood mentality because of that. Instead, there was almost this, it's been depicted as an enjoyment of the drums, the call of battle, the call of that adrenaline pumping, in order to see if you live or die, you know, on the battlefield. And indeed, a lot of reverence given to that, for the bravery to even take the chance of dying, but also to the fact that if you did die, then, you know, Valhalla was calling if you put up a good fight and if you were honorable in that fight. And so again, much reverence was given to it. It wasn't sort of feared in the way that we know. Surely the adrenaline would feel similar, but because the consciousness seemed to have been very different, I don't think the adrenaline that we feel because of anxieties that are embedded and indoctrinated in us subconsciously, as even some things that we've never even experienced ourselves, just being indoctrinated um, uh, to fear diversity, to fear others, to fear the judgment of others, etc., all invisible things for the most part, yet they create an anxiety that can make people commit suicide, that can make people have sleepless nights, that can make people not eat or overeat, but have a huge response that actually you wouldn't have survived if you had that type of adrenaline and that response to adrenaline back then. And so again, there's something hugely amiss. And so you would think the fact that we haven't had to go to battle, physical battle, as much, because there's armies to do that, there's police forces to do that, there's the fear of the law that should put people off from attacking you because of the consequences they face. No, there's something amiss, because that fear of it is very much apparent and very debilitating for many, many people. And so again, there's something amiss. Instead of falling into victimhood and fear, it's like fear was a food. It's like the adversity, the challenge was a sustenance, a driving force to create and to do everything that you could to be remembered for your innovation and your creativity, your creation. And then all of a sudden, we find ourselves, so what is going wrong here? We have kids that are afraid, of something that they've never experienced, that they're willing to muzzle themselves up, as teenagers, because they are in terrible fear of being judged if they don't do so. They are in terrible fear to the point of some of them hating their own parents for what they've done to the climate, and terrible fear of something they haven't even come into yet as an experience of a climate that is unlivable or challenging. And so we are really finding that micromanaging and few people at the top that make decisions for you through that micromanagement, the more resources, instead of us being able to use the resources that we have in an innovative and creative and productive way, we are constantly being given these things, so to speak, that are of our innovation, but then we are being micromanaged as to how they are used, and we are actually in fear of our own greatness. That's the only conclusion I could come up with, that we are in such fear of our own greatness, of being the warrior within ourselves, the savior for ourselves. We've been so indoctrinated and so conditioned to wish for a savior outside of self that we it can only be because we've given the power to the few to control our consciousness and actually utilize our innovation to do that even more so. And it all comes from a detachment of that we were in the past so attached to and in relationship with, not separated from. And so this 2-year period has been an intense course, an intense time for so many people to actually fall into the depths of isolation, depression, anxiety, loneliness. And it is so foreign to what we are made to be like. It is so foreign to a sociable animal, a sociable beast in this realm that is having an experience. The bodies remember. I feel that these bodies that come back around because they're born generation to generation from people who have been still living in this realm as the next is born, being born from the womb of a mother that is still here, so therefore is has been eating the fruits of the land, so to speak, so therefore is in true real, the subconscious is in true connection with the nature that is around us, the different aspects of beings, of animals that are here in this realm around us. And so we see that, you know, there's got to be this subconscious knowing in our waters, in our cellular structure, that this is all wrong, that this is the wrong way round. This detachment has got to be part of this loneliness and the ability for others to fill us with fear, because there's some kind of knowing deep down within that this isn't the way we are supposed to live. This isn't the way that we are supposed to fear. This certainly isn't the way that we are supposed to respond. Yet we are being told. It's got to have created a cognitive dissonance where people are being separated more from themselves and the weather and the abundance around them and the creativity that they hold within themselves and that is around them, constantly being sort of shredded down, you know, like with the grater, just taking slices off so that there's so many bits, you know, like if you grate in a carrot, there's so many bits, you know, that end up in the middle that are all part of the same being, all part of the same knowing, have absorbed the same energies, but they're detached from one another. I don't know why grated carrot came up, but you know, it is what it is. Maybe it's to look a bit like a carrot today. So, you know, it's just something that I was thinking about, and it really is time. If ever there was a time, if ever there was a call from all of the energies around you and within you to finally start to really think about where we are at, that we are willing to allow people who are so mentally ill and who are so controlled and are so conniving and so corrupt to tell you as an individual, to tell you and your cells, the stars within you, to tell you the planets, the organs within you, to tell you as a being, as a spiritual being having this physical experience, what you must fear, what you will be able to do and what you won't be able to do, what you actually want through advertising, what you actually can be and what you cannot be, what you can enjoy and what you can't enjoy, what is right for you to lust after, love, feel passionate about, and what is wrong for you to lust after and love and feel passionate about. This micromanaging has grated us up like one big carrot, and now there is like these energies running around, all detached from one another, detached from. So again, what you detach from, you can be indoctrinated to fear. And that is one of the main things that if we were able to see that, if we were able to really conceive what has happened here with a card trick, with a magical twist in the wrist, you know, with an illusion that is being created of this detachment, of this vulnerability, then we would really, that's when it would actually change in an instant. The frequency would lift to a point where actually this did not work for them any longer, that this would not be manifested into being. We would move into cycles with far more knowing and far more wonder about what this new cycle will bring. We would move into weather patterns with far more, again, wonder and far more innovative ideas that we can use, you know, in a local way to be able to not in spite of, but because of, be driven by the weather to create that kind of innovation, to continue being able to grow food. You know, children would not think chicken nuggets are separate to a chicken. They would not think that they are just separate things that are created out of nothing rather than a chicken. They would know that that chicken is then being killed, prepared, and packaged, it's just crazy how detached we are compared to where we say was a time that was of less innovation, less knowing, less intellect, less understanding. To me, it doesn't feel that way. It feels like we've been going down the spiral, and now we need to choose for ourselves as individuals, and hopefully enough individuals do it, that we actually start moving back up that spiral again. And that is all about connection without fear, connection with each other without being terrified of the breakup, connection with each other without being terrified of the separation that hasn't even happened yet, or being terrified of looking at yourself when something ends, relationship wise, so that you feed hate, or you feed loathing into the situation, rather than look at yourself and learn and use it for your greatness. There's far less really that should be breaking us, but because we haven't because we've given over our rights to stay connected to those things that actually do affect us, and we affect them, then we fear it, and that fear has got to stop. So it's just a talk, a little bit of a rant. I nearly did it driving, but I'm hanging around today a little bit, so I'm in between things. So I thought I'd get this out, speak it out, and hopefully the right ears will hear it. If you like the video, share it, like it, and please do subscribe. And of course, if you want a personal reading, a tarot evening, even if you're abroad, we can sort of where you get your friends round, be in connection with one another. I'll be there on the Zoom, and people can come to a private room and speak on the Zoom to have their reading, and then we can have like a group thing going on. Or if you're close by to me in the UK, I can travel around and visit, because that has actually been an awesome addition to my repertoire lately, and it's really helped me out. And I really do appreciate the people that have been booking in personal readings. Of course, as I said, energy bending sessions where we work to be connected to our energy points, so much so that we can push and bend that energy wherever we want to. And I do feel that a lot of my clients get so much from it, and a couple of them I see get into that energy bender level, to the point where I really do feel that if enough of us were doing it, in that yes, individuals get responses, but if enough of us were doing this and so connected to our energy, that this is actually what would bend time, that would actually allow us to see far easier through into other dimensions, that would bend timelines, because we are able to channel our energy so powerfully and go around any mountains that are being put in front of us by the very few. So yeah, that's on offer. Look in the description box, check out my socials. I really do appreciate it. Much love, balance and wholeness always. Mwah, from one carrot to another.